podcast, which features interviews and discussions on all issues relating to high quality in the early years and school age care sector. In our episodes, we have a range of speakers who are leaders in the areas that matter to Early Childhood Ireland members. This podcast series is proudly supported by Aricus Insurance, which offers a comprehensive range of cover at discounted premiums for both business and personal insurance products. So visit www.aricus.ie for more information. So today we're going to chat about the newest addition to Early Childhood Ireland's Learning Hub. This is a really interesting expansion of the Learning Hub, and it includes a new pedagogical space in addition to the existing compliance space. I wanted to hear more about this expanded Learning Hub and to take us through the development of it, what was involved in the development of it, and what's on it and plans for future content. I'm delighted to be joined by my colleagues Máire Cleary and Milica Atanackovic. Máire is Director of Funding and Partnerships in Early Childhood Ireland, having joined the organisation in 2022. Her academic background is in economics and politics, and her professional background is in human rights, in particular children and women's rights. Throughout her career, Máire has worked with national and international NGOs, UN agencies, and research organisations. Her professional focus has always been on cultivating partnerships and growing funding in order to achieve transformative impacts for an increased number of people. And her professional commitment to the early years is reinforced by her experience as a mother. Milica is Membership Excellence and Learning Manager at Early Childhood Ireland, and her background in early years is rooted within a passionate interest in creative arts and child participation. Milica originally studied design communication before moving into early childhood care and education in Australia. She sees training and mentoring as a key element of quality in the early years and school age care sector, and she has worked over the years as an educator, service manager, and trainer. And she combines experience from a range of creative disciplines to her work. So you're both really welcome. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Máire and Milica.
Thanks,
Thank
Máire.
you so much for having us, Máire, and thank you for this really kind introduction.
So, Máire, I'm going to come to you first. And maybe before we get into the detail of the expanded Learning Hub, could you tell us a little bit about the new team at Early Childhood Ireland, the Funding and Partnerships team, what its purpose is, how does it fit into our structure and strategic plan?
Great, that's a really good opening question, Máire. Thank you. I suppose the Funding and Partnerships team is new to Early Childhood Ireland, but Early Childhood Ireland has been working in partnership with a variety of organisations for a number of decades. And so by having a Funding and Partnerships dedicated team, it is really an opportunity to sharpen the focus on delivering increased impact through working with existing and new partners. And similarly, in terms of funding, this is an opportunity to grow new funding in order to reach an increased number of beneficiaries. And for Early Childhood Ireland, that really means the early years sector, our members and children. And so, yeah, the team is new, but it's really focusing work that has been ongoing for a while with the expertise of the two pillars that we have. That's a membership excellence and learning pillar and a policy advocacy and capacity pillar, with the support of the research team and with all the other teams within Early Childhood Ireland. It's like Funding and Partnership is a team effort within the organisation. And so though it's a new function and a new team, this is a continuation of really strong work that has been ongoing for decades.
So I suppose moving on then from that, because it's linked to the development of the Learning Hub, what's the background to the What Works funding, and what does that mean for our members, Máire, in terms of broadening the scope and range of free to members courses on the Learning Hub?
Yeah, thank you for this question, Máire. It's interesting. So the What Works Sharing Knowledge Fund really appealed to me because it has such an emphasis on prevention and early intervention. And even the theme, the title of the fund, I suppose, What Works, resonated with me because it links to a theory of change approach, and it links to an approach of designing interventions for the early years sector where you're using evidence-based, pedagogically sound approaches, and you are deciding to implement these approaches in particular because you think that they work. They work in terms of delivering a very concrete desired result. And that focus on early intervention, on prevention, on a theory of change pathway to delivering the desired result for the early years sector is what really appealed to me. And in a way, there was a real synergy between an internal process that Early Childhood Ireland was going through in evolving our own theory of change and figuring out what works and what kind of interventions we want to bring around, and also the specifics of this fund and its priority to chart a path of what works in order to bring in early intervention and prevention in the earlier sector. So there was a good synergy. And again, everything that we do, every bit of funding that we apply for and secure, it is really with the intention to extend the supports that we provide to our members. So Early Childhood Ireland works with over 4,000 members that support over 160,000 children in the early years sector in Ireland. And every project that we develop, every new funding that we secure is really geared towards extending the supports for early years members settings.
And basically, so the funding that we got through the What Works has enabled us to create a new space on the existing Learning Hub. The existing Learning Hub has been there for a couple of years now and has provided kind of compliance type training, like first aid, fire safety, personal development skills, computer skills, and now we have a pedagogy space. That's kind of the situation that What Works has led us to?
That's exactly right. And the timing of it was very particular. So when we applied for this funding last year, that was a time when there were new Ukrainian refugees and Ukrainian families settling in Ireland as a result of the conflict in Ukraine. And so that was a time where member settings were experiencing new children in their early years rooms. And members were identifying a need to engage in a pedagogically appropriate and supportive way with children who did not have English as their first language, and nor did their families. So the timing of it was interesting, and that was coupled with our intention to expand the Learning Hub to include a pedagogy space. And yeah, it was really in recognition that member settings already have capacities in place, but required additional support in order to support children and their families who don't have English as their first language. And beyond that, to support a diverse linguistic environment in early years rooms beyond the specifics of a single language. So the project that we implemented, thanks to funding from the What Works Sharing Knowledge Fund, is called Nurturing a Culturally and Linguistically Responsive Environment. And really the emphasis here is not on a specific language and supporting interaction in a specific language that is not English, but it is in having the pedagogical sound tools to support diversity and inclusion in a responsive manner and an age-appropriate manner for the children as well. And a big part of the What Works project was about establishing the infrastructure. So our eLearning platform has experienced upgrades as a result of the What Works funding to make that possible.
And the existing Kids Active course has been moved from its old home to the newly expanded Learning Hub, and a lot of members will be familiar with Kids Active already. So that's the start of what will be a larger suite of training courses on the pedagogical space.
Yeah, that's right.
Marco, mi vuoi fare impazzire? Cosa dico?
Milica, I might come to you next to tell us more about the This Is Me course, which, as I said, joins Kids Active on the new pedagogical space as part of the, like Maria said, the creating culturally and linguistic diverse environments for children. So can you take us through what's in that course? Why should people do it? What does it entail? And so on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose following on from what Maria was saying, and maybe just give a little bit of a background as well. I know Maria has sort of given the background around the timing, but also I suppose it's important to mention that we have partnered with Mother Tongues on the development of this program. And last year we worked with Mother Tongues to produce a number of online webinars, which a lot of our members will be aware of, and these are still available on YouTube. And we also hosted a series of weekly workshops to sort of discuss these webinars. So the funding, really gave us an opportunity to work with Mother Tongues to deliver a program and to deliver content, like Maria was saying, that really supports our members to explore a strengths-based approach to nurturing a culturally and linguistically responsive environment in their setting. But also what was really important was for us to produce a program and to produce materials that really support members to become content creators. And what I mean by that is to really take these materials and the messaging and to develop them further to best suit their current needs and the needs of their setting, the children and the families in their setting. So, that's really what we aim to do with the program. And I suppose first and foremost, what I should have really said is that, multilingualism, it's very personal, so for us, reflection is very important. And it was very important for us to develop a program that allowed educators to reflect, to be aware of, the linguistic languages around them, and, to be aware of multilingualism that is around us all, and to be part of that, and to be positively part of that, and to be really curious about that, and to be curious about what that means for their context and for the children. So I suppose when we were developing the program, it's just important to sort of say that we really wanted to root it in research. So there is touching on sort of that it's based on research, but also the practical pieces, and then using different approaches so that you can take different materials, explore them further, with your team, and, really, we hope, bring further discussion and dialogue within your setting. So just, from a very kind of, practical perspective, or giving you kind of more information about the actual program, it is split into 2 sections. And the idea, I suppose, as well, more, and just to explain, it is bite-sized information, so this isn't a program that is overly onerous. It's very much broken into sections where you can, explore it in your own time. You can return to it. It's developed for mobile learning, so you can look at it on your phone. And we also really wanted it to be a tool that educators can return to, so the information can be revisited, it can be re-explored, it can be something that really strengthens your knowledge, but also that if you've kind of moved away from it at some point and you want to go back, that you can further explore it. So just to sort of explain that was very much, I suppose, the forefront of our mind when we were developing, the program. We really wanted to be something that people felt that they could return to, and that's why we have a toolkit. But the 2 sections, involve exploring language and identity. So really delving into, I suppose, what you might know as a learner and you know, why you need to know that. And then section 2 looks at sort of home languages, and you know, it really looks at sort of research to practice. So there's also a toolkit at the end, and as I was saying, you know, really exploring content in a bite-sized way. So you know, there's downloadables, there's PDFs, there's podcasts, there's videos, there's blogs, you know, so we would hope that there's something in there for, you know, everyone, for, you know, for our members that really love to get their teeth into a good article, that they can read that, for those that really like to listen to a podcast, for those that really like to watch videos, for those that like to do it all, that we really hope there's, you know, something in there for everyone.
And you kind of mentioned that, you know, I suppose last year, like Maria said, was a very particular catalyst for a lot of this kind of work. But I suppose it's important to say that for a lot of our members, they've been working with linguistically diverse groups for a long time, be it, you know, people who have come to live here to work, asylum seekers, and so on. So it's applicable in all those situations and will build on prior learning. Is that, am I right in saying that, Milica?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, that's the importance of that partnership with mother tongues, you know, because really mother tongues are, you know, I suppose they're really encouraging us and reminding us of the value in the mother tongue. But I mean, that lots of children are native English speakers, and, you know, others are coming that are bilingual to Ireland. You know, there's lots of different circumstances and scenarios, you know, but I suppose also, you know, it's about, we really want our members, and I suppose their teams and the educators, to be supported to engage in, you know, continuous professional learning and content that is relevant to them, you know, and that's relevant to, you know, also what's happening within our society. And I think, as Maria was saying, you know, the situation with the Ukraine, and it's not to say, absolutely the point that you're making, it's not to say that this is always something that's really, really important. But I suppose it just shined a little bit more of a spotlight on, you know, really saying, okay, well, it's great to really have a program that is there, that is rooted in research, that, you know, allows our members to then take that program, and through their team meetings, through their engagement with families, that they have then the tools to further, you know, explore that, and we hope to, you know, build their confidence and to come back and re-engage with us around what works, what doesn't work. And that's the beauty of e-learning. You know, it's something that we can, and that's, you know, the funding has allowed us to do that, to have an e-learning program that we can adapt, we can, you know, build upon, we can add additional content, you know, we can see what aspects of it are working, where the engagement is really working. So, you know, it's we hope that it is powerful now, but also into the future, that it's a very useful program to have for our members.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if I can dip in here as well. I'm loving Millie's answer, and I just wondered if I could build on to it. It really strikes me that the This Is Me course is set up in such a way to allow educators to dip in and out of it when they feel the need. And I think this is really useful. And it's also that realization that we know through mother tongues, through our partners, that a third of parents who don't speak English as their first language are not confident in passing on their mother tongue to children. And then 3/4 of children don't use their mother tongues as they grow up. And so there's something about that link between the use of foreign languages, diversity, positive identities that are diverse, and well-being of children in our early years, which is also linked to the well-being of educators. And I think, you know, having a reference point such as the This Is Me course is just such an easy, accessible way. And given the size of Early Childhood Ireland's membership, it's just, there's a real benefit there. And I hope that as we get more testimonials of members engaging, and Millie may share some of the testimonials But as we get more testimonials, it is really clear that it's a resource that is there at educators' fingertips, literally, to engage with, not only with a single linguistic group, but to engage with as a diversity tool.
And free to members and their educators, which is a huge benefit as well. So
just what resonated with me was that members were saying how easy it was to use the course.
Yeah, so some of the testimonials for members were around definitely how the program is easy to navigate through, and that again it gives really good, case studies, or we have the story in there that's really practical. Yes. And giving some of the complexities as an educator that you may encounter in your day-to-day practice. So far we've received really positive feedback, but look, we're really open to the feedback of our members as they go through it, because we really want to make programs and want to make content that is relevant to our members. And we're really conscious that in today's world, we're just constantly absorbing so much information, and I think there's this feeling like, how do I remember that, and how do I know and keep up to date? And I suppose what we're trying to say with this program is you don't need to. We've developed and designed a program that you can return to, that you can sit down and take in some of the content, and that it's very much rooted in supporting you to apply knowledge to your role, so that it's relevant, and that also it's really rooted, I suppose, in a desire to use that information over time. So you might have a very personal interest, but actually at the moment your setting doesn't actually have a lot of children who are, bilingual, for example, or multilingual. But in a year's time, actually, that totally changes. And so it really is built on the idea that educators can return to it, and they can, as I said earlier on, that they can really take that content and curate it themselves, and use it to build on, take some of that content, build their own presentation for their teams around, how that might support their practice and what's happening in their settings, and to also engage with their families first and foremost, and their partnerships with the families in their settings.
You've said a couple of times about it being, that you can dip into it, you can return to it, depending on kind of what's happening in your setting. And you gave that really good example of, it could be something that you have a theoretical interest in now, but in a couple of months' time, you may have a very practical need to explore this more, but which is great. But about how long does it take, approximately, and people get certs of completion when they finished, I think. So, you can have your cert, but you can still come back to it and access the content.
Yeah. So if you were to sit down, Máire, and to, register and go into the program, and you wanted to go through all the sections and complete, there's checking your knowledge, little quizzes to keep you engaged, and to go to the toolkit at the end. In total, it wouldn't be more than 1 hour. Now, there is podcasts where we've broken them up into recommending that you listen for 10 minutes, but they're part of larger podcasts, or there's videos that we're suggesting that you might watch a video and watch maybe 15 minutes of that video, but they're part of a series. So, it could go on for much longer, but if you were to just go through it and go through the content read through the content, listen to some of the content as it's presented, it wouldn't take you more than, an hour.
Perfect. And then what's next for the pedagogy space?
We want to be producing programs and content that are relevant to our members, and offering, I suppose, continuous professional learning opportunities that really have advantages to them. So, we want to be developing programs that are really supporting our members to continue to foster their own learning environments and professional learning, and to really help them to be engaged in their work. And we are looking and hoping to not only produce some additional programs around the outdoors, the under twos, and documentation with a particular focus on learning stories, but also to bring in through the functionality of the learning management system that we now have through this funding, to create opportunities for peer-to-peer learning through learning circles. So really to be bringing our members into a shared dialogue and discussion, and we would hope then that will help to shape the future programs that we are developing. As our members will know, we are also engaged in our National Pajama Day funded project for Reggio Emilia, based on the Reggio Emilia approach. So activity 3 is focused on developing a bespoke toolkit that will also sit on our LMS. So we have a huge amount happening over the next number of months, and we have had feedback from members that they'd like to see us getting more content up and onto the pedagogy space. So that is in our plans, and that's what behind the scenes we're working on at the moment.
Sounds really exciting. I love the idea of the learning circles and the peer-to-peer learning. So and also,
sorry, more to interrupt, but also, for us, what's really important is actually that shared learning, so actually that our members are sharing their journey of learning with us, so that, we can build and grow and continue to be learning together, so that there's an opportunity within the LMS to be sharing practice, and, so that we're sharing together and showing, the exemplars of that positive practice, and then the challenges, because of course within that there's going to be challenges, but that others may be on slightly different journeys. So, with I suppose, a tiered kind of approach that we're hoping within the programs that we develop, there's something there for everyone. So whether it's the start of your journey or, you're further into that journey, that you can get something out of it, and then hopefully support each other.
I really love what you're saying, Millie, about the bite-sized learning, because one of the things that really resonates with me when it comes to this particular funded program is that it's about fostering an environment that is linguistically responsive and that is culturally responsive. And it's nurturing an environment is something that happens over time, bit by bit, with continuous engagement, with the CPD, with the children in your room. So it's not really something that you attain once and you get certified and that's the end of your journey. It's really that bite-sized engagement over time that's really meaningful. I think it's pedagogically appropriate. I think it's suitable for educators who are just so busy. And it also works in the context of what works to nurture an environment that is culturally and linguistically responsible. So I loved what you were saying about even at 10 minutes of a podcast listen could bring you further along in your journey. So yeah, that really resonated with me, Millie.
Yeah, and I think, Maria, it's no more like ourselves. We're so bombarded with content, and also, we're time poor. And it can be difficult, it can be difficult to find the time, even though we would love to have the time to really engage in, content for a number of hours. But, I think what we really wanted to do was to create content that, it's bite-sized, but also knowing that, within a team meeting, sometimes those team meetings can be, not sometimes, those team meetings are wonderful opportunities for discussions about pedagogy and discussions about practice. And if you can bring in look, let's just listen to this 10 minutes or watch 10 minutes of this video together, and then, engage in some dialogue and discussion about it. Or, there's information we can download for our families and we can discuss this, together, or we can fill out this, information leaflet together and adapt this, building on those partnerships of families. So it's, as you say, the aim is very much to be sort of deeply respectful of, I suppose, people's time, but also, really encourage them to take the information, explore it, and then re-explore it again, because actually that really strengthens, you know, your knowledge, and it really strengthens to kind of come back and revisit it. So, you know, it's a really, and it will be a very important part of all our programs. I mean, that is our approach, you know, that's our strategy, that it's very much around providing micro-learning content. It's not about providing programs where people need to sit down for hours and hours on end to complete them.
And having the learner involved in their own learning, drawing on their experience, sharing their experience, reflecting on their experience, and then developing new strategies from that, rather than it being, you know, like a tip sheet of, you know, 10 things to do to whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, something for us as well, you know, we very much as an organization see e-learning and, you know, the LMS now that we have been able to develop upon with the pedagogy space through the What Works funding, you know, we very much see it as a tool, you know, and it's part of a journey of learning that involves, you know, a blended approach. So within Early Childhood Ireland, you know, we're constantly thinking about, okay, well, you know, where's the opportunity for a face-to-face seminar or conference, or, you know, where do we want to be developing upon the content that we're producing and creating with our members and for our members, you know. So we very much see this as a tool that complements the other outputs, the other materials, you know, that complements this podcast, Máire, that you work on, and that you're, you know, that so many of our members listen to, you know, that complements our publications that we're producing on our large, you know, program of work. So, you know, for us, it's been a wonderful opportunity to, you know, offer this tool, and then to see what, you know, down the road, how we build on that and what that looks like through a blended approach, you know.
Great. So thanks a million for that. Maria, do you want to add anything just before we wrap up?
It's just been such a pleasure talking to you and Millie today about the What Works Fund and what that has meant for Early Childhood Ireland. I suppose I would be remiss if I didn't say that the reason why we do continuous professional development supports for early years educators is really because we see that as an integral part of our theory of change, as a way of affecting positive change for children in the early years sector in Ireland. And one of the strongest predictors, as we know, of learning and positive relationships in earlier settings is the relationship with educators. And if educators are fostering that diverse, responsive, multilingual environment for children, then the environment will indeed be better for children and better for the educators in turn. So that link between the funding that works for the educators that ultimately works for children in earlier settings in Ireland is really, really important. And there's just one very last comment about diversity in earlier settings. And it's something that, Máire, you said in a podcast maybe more than a year ago, but it just resonated with me so much. Sometimes diversity is very visible, sometimes diversity is hidden, and there's diversity within an early years room, whether we see it or not. And I think that idea of the environment being supportive of diversity is really, really important. So I really enjoyed supporting this program. Kudos to Millie, who has led the pedagogical aspects. Kudos to our partner, Mother Tongues. And thank you for inviting me to be a guest at my first podcast ever. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you both for joining me. It's been really interesting to hear more of the background to the development and the future plans. That sounds so exciting. So thank you both for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks
so much, Máire.
Thank you, Millie.
And thank you for listening to this episode of Early Childhood Ireland's podcast, which is proudly supported by Aricus Insurance. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, spread the word to your friends and colleagues, and stay tuned for our next episode.